have a born this one made chest. I can't even rest. No cost of living, everything doubling. This thing troubling. Tell me how I must carry on with a seemingly one arm. Tell me how I must survive with 6.5. Tell me how I must survive with 6.5. Tell me how I must survive with 6.5. Please tell me how I must survive with 6.5. Every time I go to the market, everything's skyrocketing. Rice, the cheese, the liver, them make me want shiver. Tell me how I must carry on with a seemingly one arm. Tell me how I must survive with 6.5. Please tell me how I must survive with 6.5. Tell me how I must survive with 6.5. Please tell me how I must survive with 6.5. The other day the landlord called me rent. I paid him the last few cents. Come on, see bill, I walk and the rest of the bill. I paid him against me will. Tell me how I must carry on with a seemingly one arm. Tell me how I must survive with 6.5. Please tell me how I must survive with 6.5. Tell me how I must survive with 6.5. Please tell me how I must survive with 6.5. Please tell me how I must survive with 6.5. Please tell me how I must survive with 6.5.
Tell me how we must survive with 6.5. The young Calypsonian there that was banned. She and her Calypso was banned by the Mashramani people, the Ministry of Education. I think they said the topic of the Calypso was outside of the age group that the child, the 6-year-old child belonged to. Well. And they didn't stop there. Another child who did a poem about the high cost of living. Her poem was also disqualified. And so lots of censorship going on. Welcome to Politics 101. Good evening. It's Tuesday evening. Dr. Henry Jeffries here. And we are expecting Amanza Walton-Desir to stop in at some point. But our regular guest is here, Dr. Henry Jeffries. We are going to be talking about the issues of the day. The teachers' strike, of course, continues. It's now into its third week. Initially, the teachers said they were striking for 2 weeks. The government has not budged, and the teachers are continuing their strike. It's now into the third week. While all of this is going on, of course, we had the young children Calypsonians. As we said, the Calypsos were banned. It's a long issue, Calypso, the mother music of the English-speaking Caribbean, was birthed during the period of slavery, and during that period, the colonial authorities banned Calypso. People were arrested for singing Calypso. It was considered to be subversive. And governments in the Caribbean have always had some problems with Calypso and Calypsonians. Trinidad is noted for that, Trinidad and Tobago. They said Dr. Eric Williams, who did a lot to promote calypso as the national music of Trinidad and Tobago, the Calypsonians used to sing a lot on him. They used to call him Deafy. You know, he had a problem in his hearing and he used to wear hearing aid, and his name was Deafy. And then Chambers, who took over when Eric died, they used to call him Duncy, because apparently Chambers was not as lettered as Eric Williams. And Eric Williams used to say, let the jackass bray. In fact, chalked us as a Calypsonian. A Calypso, say, in which he sang, he said he applied for membership of the PNM. And the whole PNM executive said, not Chalky. Not Chalky will sing on us. He will come in and he will sing Calypso on us. And Eric said, no, bring him in. Bring him in. And they said, Doc, why would we want to bring a Calypsonian who will sing against you? And Eric is reported to have said, let the jackass bray. When Pandey came to power, he attempted to ban Calypsos, and he got into a lot of trouble with a new crop of Calypsonians, Crow and Watchman and Sugar Aloes, and them fellas gave Pandey hell. You know, Crow, Pandey, the jail is waiting. Gypsy had sung a calypso in 1986. Captain, the ship is sinking. And that calypso played a big role in helping to bring down the PNM. Gypsy went on to become a minister of culture in the UNC government of Pandey. And Crow used Gypsy's song, Captain, the ship is sinking, and sang, Pandey, the jail is waiting. And they give the politicians hell. Of course, Pandey, Indo-Guyanese, Indo-Caribbean, Indo-Trinidadian, was not as patient with the Calypso and Calypsonians as Eric Williams was, and so attempted to censor. We remember when the PPP first came back to power in 1992, they sought to move Mashramani away from February. They wanted to take the celebrations to May, around independence, and they said it was Burnham Birthday and so on, and it was the Calypsonians who in song waged a struggle to keep Mashramani in February, and the PPP pushed back. Well, not pushed back, but they walked back their attempt to move Mashramani from February and to play down, so to speak, It's always an issue whenever non-African, all governments, like I said, have problems with Calypsonians, all governments. But non-African governments tend to be more aggressive in terms of the way they've responded to Calypso. Burnham didn't necessarily like the criticism. Remember, Rebel, during the Burnham era, the Calypsonians didn't sing against the PNC. Rebel was brave enough to do that. And every year, Rebel would come second. And they said, the politicians didn't like what he was singing. Burnham never banned. Rebel would come second. And Rebel sang a calypso, say, I is a second man, as a second child from my mother, I have a second-hand girlfriend, and I bring in second every year. And ironically, the year 1993, that was the first year after the PPP came back to power, Rebel won his first crown. And he sang two songs, Desi, You're Wrong, saying, echoing the sentiments of PNC supporters that white was wrong to give in to free and fair elections. Desi, You're Wrong was probably, I would say, one of the best calypsos, political calypsos coming out of Guyana. And the other calypso he won with was No Name on the List. Babu Ram Singh name not on the list, there was a lot of controversy about people's name not being on the list and so on. And Rebel captured those two things, you know. No Name on the List, which was the Indian response to the election, that a lot of their names were not on the list. And Desi You're Wrong, which was the African response, was that's how it was wrong to give in and allow Jagan and Jimmy Carter to come in and fuffle him and so on. But during the PNC days, during the Burnham days, they never banned the calypso. They never disqualified people. Now we have moved into that era where young calypsonians are disqualified, banning calypso. It's a new development, and it's a dangerous development. When you move to the arts, you're really getting to the heart of public and political expression. It's not an by the way development. It's a very serious development. As I've said, you know, I've seen little children on stage, especially African Guyanese children, winding up and singing jump and wine and thing, and I never hear the government or anybody said they shouldn't be singing those songs. But there's a child singing songs, lyrics that are uplifting, social commentary, political commentary, and you're saying that children should not sing political commentary. That is in effect what the government is saying. That children should not be singing political and songs that are political and social commentary. This government is showing its hand. You know, those of us who for 3 years have been upfront. I'm not talking about those who hiding. Those of us who have been upfront, the government is an apartheid regime. This government is a dictatorship. We weren't hiding. And many people, including some on our side of the political aisle, the opposition, who said, well, you know, maybe they're not quite apartheid and so on. Well, the government is proving us correct. The way in which they're treating trade unions that are made up of mostly people of African descent is not the same way they're treating trade unions that are made up of people of Indian descent. Go to South Africa. The way they treated trade unions of black workers was not the way they treated trade unions of white workers and even colored workers. Miriam Makeba, perhaps the most famous singer to come out of South Africa, was banned from her own country. She went back when Mandela took power. When her mother died, she couldn't go back to South Africa because she sang against the apartheid regime. She went to the United Nations and she gave testimony. She was married to Stokely Carmichael, by the way. But she could not go back to South Africa for her own mother's funeral because she sang against the government. By the way, I was fortunate as a boy, and I know Jeffrey was a big boy for me, but I was fortunate when Miriam Makeba visited Guyana. I noticed in backstage is Amanza Walton-Desir, who's joining us tonight. She could not remember, she had to read about that in book. When Miriam Makeba and Stokely Carmichael came to Guyana. Big deal. Oh, big deal. They said Burnham was smitten by Miriam Makeba. She came to Buxton, garment factory yard, a little boy, you know. But she was banned. Her songs were banned in South Africa. This government is banning songs. You know, I mean, this government is doing their due. And they're proving everything that we have said. They're proving us correct. we have to give Jeffrey some credit, a lot of credit. Long Jeffrey said these people are about political domination, and he keeps saying that over and over again. They want to dominate everything, not just the political space. You're now talking about cultural space, economic space. That is the definition of dictatorship. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. It's Tuesday evening. Dr. Henry Jeffries here, Amanza Walton-Desir is here, and we are going to be talking. While all of this is going on, the teacher strike is on the front burner. What's happening with the children in Calypso? Venezuela has been percolating in the background. The Venezuelans have been massing troops on the border. And it seems as though the Americans have picked it up and they get the satellite pictures and so on. And it barely made the news in Guyana, understandably so. Well, some would say not understandably so, because it should have been much more news in Guyana. But of course, given the intensity of our domestic politics, we get caught up with that and we don't really realize that a lot of what is impacting Guyana, there are implications outside of Guyana, and what is happening outside of Guyana is impacting Guyana. And the Venezuelans are there. The Argyle Declaration now is seen for what it is, a piece of paper that was engineered by the Venezuelans using their friends in CARICOM and probably Washington and other places, Guyana, to do exactly what we are doing. Turn a blind eye. Notice we're not playing Not a Blade of Grass anymore. Not a blade of grass. We are banning calypsos. What did the other day we were using the calypso, Not a Blade of Grass, as our national anthem? No, we banning calypso. So Venezuelans got what they want, Guyana thing, and now we are back to our domestic bad boy politics. And the Venezuelans are massing troops. That's what they wanted to do in the first place. But they wanted to lull Guyana into false sense of security. But I am not an international relations specialist. I had to do it when I was in grad school. I hardly teach it now. Insofar as I do international relations, I do Pan-Africanist international relations, but I still get my little A's. As you all would have noticed today, the Americans veto a resolution coming out of the Security Council of the UN that called for a ceasefire in Gaza. For me, to see a black face, a black female face, announcing that veto, it caused us to think that the logic of what we fight for, we fight for black people to get into big position, black people to become president, to become UN ambassador, and so on and so forth. When we become the UN ambassador to the United Nations, you gotta be the face of US imperialism. The logic of what you fight for. I remember Jeffrey's old enough to remember this, Amanza is too young to remember. When Andy Young was the UN ambassador appointed by Carter after the 1976 election. And Andy Young was caught obnobbing, I think, with the Palestinians, and Carter had to fire. Henry Jeffrey remember them story, I mean, how could Andy Young, coming out of the civil rights movement, not really deal with the Palestinians? I mean, he had to, but the Americans were not supporting the Palestinians, and so Andy Young was out of line and he had to go. Just a little bit of tidbit there. Welcome if you're joining us from Guyana. Welcome to Politics 101. It's 7 o'clock in the evening. You know, when you learn in Spanish, they said buenos tardes and buenos noches. And Miss Henry teaching, she said, you know, noches is night, tardes is evening. And then the teacher them thing, you don't left you, no. You don't left you. Buenos tardes. So it's 7 o'clock in the evening. We know we Guyanese and Caribbean people, they say 7 p.m. in the evening. Right. We are right. We like, it's emphasis is called. It's emphasis. When a man say gonna kill you dead. He'll kill you dead. The beauty of language. The beauty of language. Creativity. You know, I was small by here, me auntie, when you see she going on. She said, you use a gallows bait. I said, Jesus Christ, gallows bait. Gallows bait is when I turn a big boy and start read, I realize it's gallows then people are talking about. Gallows, but they say gallows bait. And they're making plenty sense. But they take the white man word and they swing it around in their own thing. One for the gallows and one for the jail. Very expressive people we are and we have to be, because we always have something to say. We always have something that is on our chest, as the young Calypsonians say. We always get something, and you know what people say? My stomach na bankos. My stomach na bankos. Oh, nothing inside. I get something on my chest. Welcome to Politics 101. Those of you who are joining us from the United States of America, Canada, the wider Caribbean, there's that spill, that oil spill there in Tobago. And Guyana named Carlin. You remember what Amnali did say? When the little boy in man reported he go for vote 2-3 times and them girl catchy and this call I'm not go there and we name Nandalal turn up and Nandalal and I'm not saying Anil, you name a call. You name a call. You name a, I remember that day well, you know, I was passing and Anil get the buy and Anil stop me car and say, look, Heinz is a decent man. He said, Heinz, well, the buy behave a little bad. The buy behave a little bad, but the parties can settle this thing. And talk to Amna and Basil them, because the parties don't need this thing to get out hard. He admit the buy was engaged in double dipping and triple dipping. So he said, I is a reasonable man. I just laugh now when they say I is the most unreasonable man. Up to election day, I was a reason, because I remember I used to, and Jeffrey just laughed me. I used to criticize the coalition government. Because you see, I come up in the old radical story. They say, when you are critical of your own, it is the highest political virtue. Political virtue for me. But for them, I was doing their work. So up to election day, I was a reasonable guy. David talked to Amna them. Amna say, Anil, your name is Carlin. Well, in the spill in Tobago, Guyana name is Carlin. I see Duncan in Tobago. He there, he got on and he see the thing for himself. And there is something there to do with Guyana. All right, we're about that time. It's not my show. I am merely the moderator, not the moderator. You know, when them people give in speech, the wedding, and what an auspicious moment. Burnham used to use the word plenty auspicious. And when I give speech in the village, they would talk like Burnham, on this auspicious moment, bringing this man and woman together. Speechifying. They don't make joke and they dress up nice. And they raise up their shoulder and stand up on their toe like a Burnham, The folk. Let me bring two of the folks in who are they still the folk? Rodney used to say, education does declass you. He said, Walter Rodney, what class you belong to? He said, I'm a declassed intellectual. So maybe we have two declassed intellectuals. So I am from the working class. What working class? You are big liar, big professor, minister, and all kind of thing. What working class? You come from the working class. Rodney said you're declassed intellectuals. Amanza, Walton-Desir, Henry Jeffrey. Good evening to you.
Good evening, David.
Good evening, Dr. Hines. Good evening, Dr. Jeffrey.
Good evening.
Amanza, you from Leeds or number 50, number 51, no, 53, 52? Where?
Leeds, 50.
Leeds.
Village.
Yes, better go there. They show me. Flash Garden came, he showed me. He said, Doctor, come let me show you. You see the house there? That is where Amanza Walton got me know she has a little girl. They show me your house. But Jeffrey's my neighbor. He's from BV, better known as Baron. And as we Buxton used to tell them, better for Wacom. Better for Wacom. So I know BV is a sleepy village. BV is a very sleepy village. At 9 o'clock in the night, nobody end up on the road. And when people getting beat on the road, they pull their blind. They now open their window. They pull their blind and watch also. But Jeffrey will say that is only a part of BV. Welcome to you all to Politics 101. Let's get started with the teachers' strike. That is the big news. I'll start with you, Amanza, since you haven't been here for a while. Your thoughts on the teacher strike, where it is at the moment, what are the prospects, the government reaction, the response of the teachers, the response of the rest of the public. What are your thoughts on that strike?
Thanks, Dr. Hines, and thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be on your show. I have been very clear in my own analysis of this that this is a strike that should be supported by every right-thinking Guyanese, every Guyanese that has an interest in the welfare and the education of our children. You cannot claim to care about the nation's children and not care about the people who educate the nation's children. It absolutely does not follow. And so I have been very clear in my support for the teachers. I am the daughter of a teacher. And like I've said, I understand the struggle of having to raise children that are not biologically your own and then go home to raise your own children. And it is not something that's for the faint of heart. I taught for 2 terms and decided that that was not my calling because it required such patience and it requires a level of commitment that at 17 I didn't think that it was me. And so I knew I always wanted to do law, and I was like, girl, you'd better proceed to law school because this teaching thing is not for you. So I say that to say I've always grown up with this deep sense of admiration for teachers. My mother was a teacher, her sisters were all teachers. So I come from a family of teachers. So it's deeply personal to me. And when you have a situation where your teachers are unable to make ends meet and they are being denied a livable wage, it's a problem for me. And it's a problem particularly because we have the fiscal space to accommodate a reasonable increase for our teachers. So I am convinced that it is a case of unwillingness, that there is not a desire on the part of this government to do better by the teachers. They have, of course, in their PR campaign, highlighted a number of interventions that they have made to improve the quality of the education delivery. But as one teacher pointed out in her song, quite the talented young lady pointed out that these improvements don't go home with the teachers. They don't translate into teachers being able to feed their own families. And so um, a distinction has to be drawn. And so for me, the struggle is a just one. I am satisfied that Barry Jagdeo and all of them are a bunch of hypocrites because they came out in 2018 when the APNUFC was in office to support the strike and to make it clear that it wasn't political. But somehow it appears as though Barry Jagdeo believes that he must be judged by a different yardstick. And I'm not prepared to do that. What is good for the goose must be good for the gander. What was good then is good now. And if you could have supported a strike in 2018, there's nothing preventing me, as a Guyanese woman, as a Guyanese mother, or as a member of parliament, from supporting our teachers.
Amanza Walton-Desir, Member of Parliament for the Partnership for National Unity, Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs. And we'll talk a little bit about foreign affairs, international politics later on. But let me bring in my brother Henry. Henry, the last time you were here, the strike was in day 2. Now the strike is in week 3. Your expectations have been dashed? Have they been exceeded? What you are seeing now that you didn't see 2 weeks ago when the strike was in day 2?
Thank you very much, David, again, and to your audience and to Amanda and all that for being here tonight. Amanda, you must come again. David needs other company, and sparkling company. He doesn't. You should come again. You should come every time.
Noted.
David, to be truthful, my expectations aren't dashed because, as I said on the last program, and I've written in my things, for me, the question, there's no doubt that I believe that if Jenny Jagan could have paid the teachers 3.4 times the GDP when they didn't have money, I'm not expecting them to do that at this time. But 3.4 times the GDP on average teachers were getting. You understand what it is? 60,000 US almost. But Exxon gone with most of that. So, I mean, let's deal with GNP or GNI or what you want to call it. But come to Guyana today. And I have no doubt that they have this space. The PPP don't want to do it. That it's nonsense. But you see, and the people should be paid. And they deserve a better salary. A teacher entering, and I see that doing a whole lot of dog whistle. A teacher entering the teaching profession in America, it's about 40,000 US. It's about 40,000 US. Entering,
yeah.
If you go to New York, you're entering at 76.
Yeah. And in California, in a place like California, it's about 80.
I mean, It's not that they can't pay. You are going to deal with your work, because and all of that, and the education, payment of public servants and all of that, and you're going to put 300. You increase that by 300%, but when you deal with capital things, or you increase by 900. You see, but that is not my point with all of this. I know they can pay, but should the teachers be on the streets again next year? They were there 2018. It's only because of their own restraint. They weren't there in 2019 and 2020. They are there again. Should they be on the street every year? And that is the danger to this nation. That is the danger to our children. Teachers supposed to be in the school teaching the children. And the Constitution laid down guide processes that would prevent this. It is clear. The Constitution says trade unions have a right to negotiate. You have laws on trade unions. The Recognition Act says that the people have their right to be recognized. The process is clear. We speak to you as any other employer. And if we don't feel you're doing well, we can have a conciliator. Not of David's ilk, obviously, because he would be biased. But let's choose a conciliator. And if you can't get a conciliator, we're going to arbitration. My God, is that difficult? Is that if you accept, is the process we need to deal with? It's not really just the wages and how much they can get. I'm not quarreling. I know they should get more. I mean, I'm not. But you don't want them on the street every year. And they've had a good reason to be on the street every single year. They might not have gone. Therefore, the question is, will the PPP government accept the Constitution and the laws of Guyana that says the teachers have a right to negotiate? And if they can't agree with them, their employers, you go to conciliation, and then you go to binding arbitration, and there is a process for that. That is what this issue, that is the grounds of this issue. That is all it is. This now how much the PPP, it can pay, I believe so. I mean, I've said 100 times, but that is it. That is it, and it's that for every single worker in Guyana. Because the government going to be setting a bad, it is setting a bad man, a bad setting. It is a question of collective bargaining. And if you really can't pay, let's see it. But as Cheddy Jagan said, that's why Cheddy Jagan different from them. Don't matter how they spin it now. Yeah. And I recognize all the things he did and so on. We all do things at points of time, and then you got. Cherry Jacob, when he was confronted with it, says, he knows what is right in trade unionism. Give them the books and have arbitration. Open the books. You know what the problem he went through I was Minister of Labor. So you know the problem he went through the PVP when he said give them the books from Asgar Ali, all of them. Who was minister there? You give it a put. He said, give them the books. And that's part of the ILO tradition, come out of the trade union movement. Give them the books. Let us sit down and see what we can do and what we can pay. If we say we can't pay, they say we can pay. We'll get them the books so we see if we can pay. And we have an independent arbitrator. It is not for Jack Dio or Orphan to sit there and determine unilaterally whether they can be. The Constitution gives people the right to trade unionism. That is the issue here. This thing about if they can pay and they don't pay, it's a thing. And, give them some money, they're going to go back. The issue is for all workers in Guyana, the issue is collective bargaining. It's in the Constitution. It says so. And therefore, you ask me where this should end or what I think. If it's one thing the PPP don't want, they don't want to be in any position where they can make the final decision about how every cent in Ghana is spent. They can't do nothing but private sector. But Well, they give him a lot of money, God knows. But they must wake up in the morning, like what happened now with Qatar or whatsoever, and they must be able to say it. And they are not going to want to deal with a trade union. I'm not saying anything. You see, about the PN, they're going to say, the PNC, they want and negotiations too. It's like, height. When the ERP, the Economic Recovery Program came into place, and it had all this struggle, and the minimum wage of people in this country fell in real terms to 75%. The inflation rate was at 40 and all that percent. And right now, I'm gone to the people and IMF, the World Bank, whoa, and had to implement this program. I did everything Jack Joe is doing now. Inventing with Fitug. You were there then, David.
1989.
I take the thing. He de-recognized them. He do all. You think it was easy? People did. Yes, he did it. Because remember, what's his name? George Daniels, and also
Yes.
have to run out the country. Now my BV man again, BV was sleepy then, it's not sleepy now. I just gotta get away from there. Otherwise, go there a couple times a week, and I just gotta get away from there by 8 o'clock. Because that is when they want to start. So no. So it's not as sleepy as it perhaps used to be. Yeah, BB is like a middle class kind of people like that. It's not like Pleasant. Pleasant different. Perhaps Boxer. No, but effectively, that is what this struggle should be about. The right of people, all people, to have what the Constitution says, and if then it turns out that they can't have that amount of money, turns out so. But remember Aubrey Armstrong, they went and fined Aubrey Armstrong, gave them nearly 60%, nearly 70% over 2 years. I was the minister. Aubrey Armstrong came to me. When he came, I didn't choose Aubrey Armstrong. I told you this thing on this program before. People tend to say, Jeffrey friend. It wasn't my friend Aubrey Armstrong. It was more luncheon friend. Aubrey Armstrong used to be in luncheon office on every time he come, he got in luncheon office Saturday or not. And Miles Fitzpatrick called me. Well, I'm looking for a lot of people. And Miles Fitzpatrick called me and said, what about Armstrong? I said, Aubrey. Well, I know Aubrey. Okay, but I don't know that. Anyway, called Patrick. Yeah, he's still there. I said, Patrick, you got Aubrey. Because according to their rules, they have to agree on the chairman. According to teachers' rules, the minister can choose the chairman. Now, that's what I said in my article last week. They got advantage. They don't want to, they ain't playing it, but they want to play it. And it will be played. And we know by how this minister behaving, what they're going to mean. And that itself going to end up in court. And then they come, and I called Patrick. I said, Patrick, Patrick says, yeah, all right. You Aubrey, all right. Then I call Luncheon. Luncheon says, yeah, good, all right, because Armstrong is in his office all the time. They're big partners, so far as I'm concerned. So they both agreed after that to that chairman. Of course, when Patrick Gaskin, I think, what's the river? Gaskin is Gaskin, like go whisper in Aubrey in Patrick ear. So Patrick called me back and said, don't take a water. Aubrey, I said, well, it's done, it's gone. It's over. That is the man that has been chosen. I spoke to the other party, they agree, it's done. Aubrey Armstrong, give them 70-something%. If you heard it, you should check back that and see the people that was on the committee to deal with all of that.
Yes,
So what I'm saying,
Clive Thomas was representing the
Clive
PSC.
Thomas,
Yes,
Christopher Ram, I think was
yes.
there. You think it's two people been Gobin Ganga? We
Gobin
don't
Ganga
want to
represent the
all
government.
this.
Yes.
Sheikh Bax wasn't there somewhere. He wasn't the chairman. Somebody, all sort of people been around this place. But at the end of the day, they said they're going to pay the teachers, of course. I had my own thing about the outcome because I believe uh, the IMF was on to the government about 60 and all that thing. And if you look around that time, you'll see that they allowed the inflation rate to go something like 10% when it was supposed to be 5%. So they claw back that resource because you got to have macroeconomic stability. So they claw back all of that from the old population, but still the public servant got that result. So I'm saying that is what we want. That is essentially, and this going to end up in the court because the PPP don't want it, and I think it's court. It's in the court already, but
It's in theater already.
all manner of things going to end up in the court as to how because the minute you go there, they're going to say, I heard them saying already, oh, the matter hasn't broken down for it to get there. Well, how long it take before it break down? 2 years, I thought it to break down. The court could have to deal with matter of wise, reasonable time and a whole manner of things. So effectively, I believe that is the issue we face here now. It's going to have to end up in the court. And if it doesn't end up the court, the trade union's going to look bad because they're going and give them and our funding give them any particularly proper money. And therefore, their way out of this, let me go to the court and let the courts decide. Or let me go to arbitration and let the arbitrator decide.
Amanza, Dr. Jeffries basically said, look, this is not about whether they can pay or not pay. This is about a political agenda on the part of the PPP. And secondly, he's saying this matter will have to go to the court. That's in your ballpark because you were a lawyer. So I'm asking you a two-pronged question here. One, do you agree with Jeffrey's thesis that the government response is not about economics and trade unionism? It's about the political agenda. And secondly, the unions have already gone to the court. And they're asking the court to find that the government is acting outside of the law. Your take on those two issues?
Well, I think that it is about the government's political agenda. That agenda being the undermining of the right to collective bargaining.
Mhm.
Remember, you are dealing with a government that is bent on dismantling all of our institutional structures, undermining democratic institutions, undermining any body or person or entity that appears to hold some kind of decision making power independent of Barry Jagdeo and his ilk. Um, and so that is their agenda. Let's be clear about that. He's also right in terms of the approach. Look, in 2018, the teachers had a strike. And I think after 9 days, they went to arbitration. If I recall correctly, I think Dr. Leland Lucas might have been the chair of that committee, and so there is an actual process through which this is resolved. That process, however, requires a fidelity to the Constitution that this government does not intend to exhibit. And so, yes, they can pay. We know that. But it is also, I agree, an attempt to undermine certain unions. And I say certain without apology because the Irfan Ali made it clear that he was going to meet with Gao and he was going to speak with Gao. And I noticed a very disturbing trend or an attempt by Barjagdio to introduce and Irfan Ali rather to introduce this thing about teachers have to wait. Oh, it's gonna come in 2027. If you recall, in 2018, after that arbitration, they came to an agreement and they had a tiered increase system and they worked out a multi-year arrangement, really essentially underscoring the importance of the collective bargaining process and really preserving and demonstrating the AP and UAFC's commitment to that process. But this thing about teachers having to wait or public servants having to wait until 2027 is worrying. People can, and I don't think, gentlemen, this government really understands. And I have to say that because it is either they don't understand or they do not care. And that for me is far worse. That their children who are going to bed on one meal a day, why are they waiting until 2027? Teachers are struggling to feed their families and to support their families now. Why are they waiting until 2027? You see, the difficulty that I have with this government, it's a question of priorities. They do not see the people of Guyana as a priority. And we have been saying this all the time. And, Dr. Jeffrey is far more versed in this than I am. But from my own layman's perspective, infrastructure is important, but also a manageable public sector infrastructure investment program is what is important. We are throwing all of this money after infrastructure, and Bar Jagdeo loves to get up to say, oh, the opposition doesn't believe that infrastructure is important. Nothing is farther from the truth. But it is far more important, to my mind, Dr. Hines, to build 10 good roads than to have 20 roads that are falling apart in a matter of 2 and 3 weeks, wasting taxpayers' monies. And this is the difficulty that I have with the entire situation. It is bad planning, but it is deliberately bad planning, which is what is worrisome for me. Because what this is attempting to do is to, of course, effect, in my view, the largest transfer of wealth to a particular group of friends and families through these construction and these infrastructure projects, knowing that for every dollar we spend, 41 cents is wasted. And so this thing about teachers having to wait until 2027, it's going to kick in then, is hogwash. The coalition government was able to give a proper tiered increase in 2018. I think the lower earning teachers were paid 12% and the higher earning 8. It is somewhere in that range. And they were able to come up with a multi-year arrangement. So why must teachers wait? Why must public servants wait until 2027 before they can earn a livable wage? What about the people that are going to bed hungry tonight? They must wait? Unacceptable to me.
The legal argument, the union, they've gone to court. They're arguing that the government action in withdrawing the salaries of, or the threat to withdraw the salaries of striking workers, and the decision to not check off dues for the union, they're arguing that the status quo, I'm using your legal language here, the status quo is in play. And while the status quo is in play, then the government is bound by the agreement that they have, agreement to pay the workers as if they're working, and of course the checkoff system. Some legal argument?
There is merit in that approach, and this is why our courts are there. They're there as the balancing act, and hopefully the matter is heard quickly, and we can come to some resolution. But absolutely, I am one who believes that these matters must be tested in a court of law, because it clarifies your jurisprudence, it clarifies the law on a number of issues. And so I am in full agreement with the union that they should do that. What is on display is the pettiness of the government in terms of not collecting the dues for the union. You see them attacking the leaders of the union, etc., and using energy that could otherwise be dedicated. For example, let's sit down to see how we could afford these increases that you're talking about. They show them the books approach that Dr. Jeffrey um, alluded to, that was Dr. Jagan's approach, but they prefer to use their energies to do other things. And I truly believe that Guyanese have had enough of the PPPC administration. I don't think we need to say anything else about who they are, and I'll be very frank. My concern is that we have to be able to show the resolve to, one, vote them out when elections come, and vote them out by a significant margin. Because you mentioned, and I made a note of it, about the bent towards domination and authoritarianism. And you know well, gentlemen, that isn't appeased. History has shown us that appeasement doesn't work. And so I always say to the apologists for the PPP that when you condone this breaking down of our democratic institutions, when you condone this corrosion of law and order, when you condone corruption with this seeming view of political dominance, and let's suppose, God forbid, that you remove and eradicate all your opposition, who do you think they're coming for? Because that spirit of domination is never satisfied. And so you are setting yourself up. It is a case of they came for the Jews, but I wasn't a Jew, so I didn't speak out. And we have history as our teacher. The question is whether we are willing to learn from that history and not repeat the mistakes, or whether we will have to feel the hard way. I am satisfied that men like yourself, like Dr. Jeffrey, myself, we have been saying these things, and we have been bringing these things to the attention of the people of Guyana. But at the end of the day, the people of Guyana have to decide what Guyana they wish to live in. And I will end by saying that for the first time, we have the resources to ensure that every Guyanese enjoys a good quality of life. There is no virtue in having a child go to bed hungry, or a mother at her wits' end as to how she will feed her family. There's no virtue in that. Nobody wins in that situation. And so we have to do better, because better is possible, and we have the resources to do better by the people of Guyana.
Amanza Walton-Desir, Member of Parliament. We have in the audience Winston Jordan. Winston Jordan, former Minister of Finance, I'm assuming, who is in semi-retirement. I hope he comes out of retirement, because we need his voice and his experience in the engine room, as it were, on these issues. He was there when the teachers struck in 2018. He's saying there, adding to Jeffrey's recollections, he said very early in the arbitration, Aubrey explained, that's Aubrey Armstrong, I explained that a high-level government official had tried to put pressure on him to influence the outcome of the arbitration. To his credit, he maintained his independence, and to reinforce it, he removed the holding of meetings from space provided by Jeffrey at the Tower Hotel. Just a little bit of anecdote, and I suppose some may say more than anecdote there, from the minister, reinforcing what Jeffrey recounted. Winston, I hope you will consider coming out of retirement, and if you do, please come back on Politics 101, because we need your voice on these issues. As an economist, as a practitioner who was there during the last strike, and as someone who I think still has a lot to contribute to our thing. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Let me just say that he didn't say, he said provided by Jeffrey, move out to the space provided by Jeffrey and went to the tower. That might well be suggested. Yeah. That might well be suggested that Jeffrey put pressure on him. But let me tell you something. You see, that is the suggestion. But let me tell you something. When Armstrong came, Aubrey came, I knew Aubrey a long time before that. When Aubrey came to this country, came to me, and he asked me, what is the government's position? I told him what is the government position. He says, and what do you think? I said, I think nothing. I said, I think absolutely nothing. You are the arbitrator. You are the one got to think on this matter. I heard the story he heard. Aubrey moving out from space provide for me made no difference to me. I was not in any fashion even in contact with Aubrey during this process. So whosoever was this person who spoke or tried to put pressure on Aubrey should come out and say, seeing that Winston brought it in the public domain. So, because all it's written there, it is suggested that perhaps I can tell you that I said to Aubrey, you are the arbitrator. This is the government of Guyana. Let me tell you something about Minister. The Minister Labour got a funny position in all of this, because it's not just governmental thing. The Minister Labour has to be independent kind of in this kind of relationship. Remember, the same time the teachers were striking, there was a teacher strike, and the government and the teachers quarreling, but the Minister later had the power to decide on the chairman. And I went on without asking anybody and appoint Rodriguez, because
Father Malcolm Rodriguez.
Yes, and he was more of a WPA and a revolutionary priest and all that kind of thing. Yeah. So, and he came out, he gave 12% and 13% and that kind of a thing. I appointed him, the PVP threw up his hands in orders. Oh, he do it by himself. I said, but this is what they write in the law. Of course, written in the law in that matter don't mean you should do it like that, because written in the law, I said the minister should. The minister still has, supposedly must go to cabinet and all that thing, but that the confusion at that point anyway. So I chose Rodriguez. So let him get Aubrey to tell us who is the person that tried to put pressure on him, rather than writing things in a way that would suggest that I did. And you are right. He needs to come out. He needs to be on the hustings right now and tell us why he did not have collective bargaining too. Because he was there. He was the minister. He should have had collective bargaining. And if he had had collective bargaining, maybe we wouldn't have been here now. So we need that. We need some kind of, but we're not hearing that kind of thing. We're hearing how much he gave them. We're not interested. At least I'm not interested if you give them, because that don't deal with what I call the institutional, the building of the institutions of Ghana. You break down the institution and say, you give me X amount of money, I'm not interested. You must go through the institutions, and the institutions say you too should have gone to arbitration.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey
Dr. Hinds,
go ahead.
I did not gather from Minister Jordan's statement that that Dr. Jeffrey was to blame. That was not my interpretation, or that he attempted to interfere. But look, I think at some point we have to decide that we are drawing a line in the sand and that we are moving this country forward. Yes, understanding the mistakes that have been made in the past, but a commitment to what are we doing now? Because the anxiety that I have is that we, like I said, for the first time, have the possibility and the means to provide every Guyanese a good life, a life free from hunger and want. And it is possible. It takes planning. It takes every bit of intellectual prowess that we have in men like Dr. Jeffrey, men like Winston Jordan. And so, what I want to see is us putting our best minds together to give Guyanese this. Listen, I move around a lot and speak to young people, and they're tired. They are tired. They're tired of the back and forth. They're tired of who was there when did what. They want to hear a vision and to see a plan that will help Guyanese to really realize a certain quality of living. And in this information age, they're seeing places like Dubai, etc., where citizens are you know, treated in a particular manner and they're able to benefit directly from the oil wealth, etc. I think we have to begin to promote this contest of ideas because our energy is energy. I think we have to begin to refocus it on how do we deliver this for Guyanese. Spend less time on the proving and fending and whatever. That is not to say that there are not some historical um, facts that we must insist on, but certainly moving us forward in the manner that says, you know what, we have an opportunity here. Let's not blow it.
Amanza Walton-Desir, and of course the challenge there by Dr. Jeffrey to Winston Jordan on his comments here. I myself didn't read the comments in the way that Dr. Jeffrey, but I was not in Dr. Jeffrey's seat. I don't have the kind of institutional memory. And so therefore, Dr. Jeffrey obviously read it differently from the way you and I. But Winston, the challenge is thrown out, and when you're ready, we can talk this through, because one of the things that this government has used, I would say not as effectively as they wanted it. Every time they're pushed in a corner, they always say, well, the coalition did do this or the coalition didn't do this. And I think we have to be frank that all governments have made mistakes, and all governments in post-colonial Guyana have played around with this question of collective bargaining. All governments. This government is perhaps most guilty because of the resources it has at its disposal, and because it's, as said, we rich. We're the fastest growing economy. Our GDP is this, 1.14 trillion. They have said it. So you can't come now and say, you won't get the money because I'll price this and all that kind of story. You are caught lying. And so it's a matter of degree. And of course, as people say, politics is always about what's in front of you. Don't go telling a 25-year-old, 30-year-old about what the PNC they do under Burnham and so on and so forth. I don't think people even bother to read those history in the way that they should. But there is something to be said that what this PPP is doing, they can't get away with it, hope to get away with it, as other governments have gotten away with it. While we're on the question of children, you all have seen this banning of calypsos and banning of poems by children on social issues. In my introduction, I kind of tried to show how the calypso has always been at odds with authority, going right back to the slavery period, coming through the colonial period to post-colonial, the post-colonial era. Jeffrey, have we stepped into an area that is new for Guyana?
You live under autocratic governments. That's what autocratic governments do. The Guyana government is categorized in the best database, V democracy, as elected democracy minus. It means that it is almost an autocracy. That is where you're going. And I don't know why you find this strange. When you ask me, when you just raised that issue, I go and I Google Which country? Which country banned the youngest artist that was ever banned in any country? It's Afghanistan. You know what I mean? When you think this gonna happen? We are like Afghanistan. Come out of the cuckoo. This is what we have in Guyana, Afghanistan. You same kind of mentality. This is an autocratic government. But I told you that what I did. I did it because the economy was in ruin. I know I had to get out the ban trade union and do all this and all this kind of thing and thing. But this is not what's going on now. They have money. They have money. So effectively, other things can be done. But Amanda spoke to the need for a vision. And so that doesn't surprise me. That don't surprise me. Banning the child don't surprise me. That is
Amanza?
Banning the child
doesn't surprise you.
No.
But look at the company. Look at the company we are in. Look at the company we are in. Show me your company.
Yes,
you are.
Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Story done. I mean, that's the people that do that kind of thing. And so I just closed up and said, it's not a big thing. But Amanza said something about vision, and we gotta move forward with a vision.
Amanza,
and let me say this to you. We have to go forward with a vision. And we need to. The truth is that we have constitutional reform that must help push this process forward. First of all, constitutional reform must reform the court system. You can't, the courts, well, the legal luminaries, as they call themselves, as I all said, it's almost collapsing. But you do not have a separation of powers. You don't have the major people in place in the court system, the Chief Justice, for 2 decades. How that? So how you will have anything like a separation of powers? Plus you have a system in which the executive control the parliament. That was part of the whole era. We never change those things. We leave it to right. And that is what much of this is about. So we now come to a point of constitutional reform. And I see they're choosing people who must go. But let me tell you, an important thing, David, that you and because you got some beat up in the last AFC government for this same thing too, promising and then doing things and so on. You and Ogunzai. But I'm saying to you that these people must put out a green paper, white paper. The parties at least should put out a conceptual white paper why they're going to constitutional reform, so we know beforehand. We mustn't go like the last time. Just go in there and haggle for what you get. The people must know why you are constitutional reform. It ain't going to take 1,000 words, 2 sheets of paper, and you put out a green paper, a conceptual paper, all the parties, PNC, PPP, well, we know why the PPP, they're going because they want no change. But the point is, everybody else going there must put out a concept paper of why we are pursuing and we want constitutional reform. It's not only about just, well, we need a tiebreaker in the judicial system. We need a more direct MP control by the constituency. We can have all of that. Yeah. But you must say clearly, because you got to state something of your vision if you're going to tell me. Or if you leave me to just deduce your vision from what you write about what you want, well, that is a dangerous process because then I can go anywhere with that. So, David, you are in the WP. Should lead the band and get the W to put out a vision of why they want constitutional reform and why it is necessary. And that is an important issue. because we mustn't go into constitutional reform how we go the last time, open-ended. Nobody know what's going on. You go in there and you hustle, and what you get, you come out with, and well, we see the result.
Henry Jeffrey, they're throwing out a challenge to the political parties about constitutional reform. By the way, Nigel Hughes is going to be here tomorrow evening. Tomorrow evening, Nigel Hughes is going to be here. He gave an address to the Burnham Foundation Forum on constitutional reform, and he has distributed it on social media, and he has raised some of the points that Jeffrey is raising here tonight. We're going to have him here tomorrow with a wide-ranging interview, and I am certainly going to raise with him the question of constitutional reform, because he has been named as a member of the Constitutional Reform Commission. He was when the coalition had put together a committee. I remember Nigel Hughes, Hassan Paris was still alive. He was on there. Duke Pollard was on there, because I remember I gave evidence before the committee, that committee that was put forward by the coalition. Unfortunately, the coalition did not move the ball forward, and Jeffrey cusses me and others, quite rightly so, about that. Jeffrey, Winston, Amanza, I'm coming to you. Winston said, I didn't say that Jeffrey was the influencer. Far from it. I was merely adverting to what Aubrey Armstrong had said in front of the arbitration panel that included Clive Thomas, my comrade, WPA.
I'm very sorry, Aubrey, but you see, when your last phrase said, and he moved out of the accommodation given by Jeffrey to go to his own, the suggestion, I believe, would have been there that it perhaps is Jeffrey you pressure. I'm sorry.
All right. So, beg pardon.
Yeah. No,
go ahead.
This issue of constitutional reform is, of course, important. Very, very important. But how about we insist on we begin to honor what we have right now? How about that too? In addition to, no, hold on. In addition to that, you see, we agree that there has to be constitutional reform, but we must also loudly insist on the honoring of what we have. You see, equally so, Article 13 speaks about an inclusionary democracy. Look, this is a thing about willingness, you know. This is about us as Guyanese realizing that advanced citizenship takes work. It is what distinguishes you from being, God forbid, on a plantation. The maintenance of freedom takes work. And so we have to begin to advocate, I believe, for a mindset change, for a mindset shift in our Guyanese brothers and sisters. The reality is that we have to begin to encourage freedom of thought, freedom of expression. We have to begin to actively and jealously guard these things. And we have to begin sounding the warning very clearly that, look, unless we as Guyanese get together and work this out, we are going to be consumed. There is a nation of 28 million on our western border strategizing right now on how to take over almost 70% of our country. And here we are haggling like this. Here this PPPC government is doing everything it could possibly do to undermine national unity. I mean, you have to realize that Jagdio and Ali, there's something wrong with these men to the degree that you cannot understand that you failing to foster national unity in the way you are is detrimental to you, your supporters, your friends, your family, and every Guyanese. In Region 1, Migrants outnumber Guyanese almost 3 to 1. Anybody from Region 1 will tell you that. And so here we are in a kind of a struggle that does not even have to be. And we're fighting here, and there is a bigger threat looming over all of our heads. And you understand what the saddest part of this is? Is that when the proverbial feces hit the proverbial fan, the ones that can afford to pick themselves up and leave this country, every last one of them that is encouraging this government with the lawlessness will pick themselves up and leave. And it is the poor Guyanese, the working class Guyanese, that will be left here to fend this foolishness off. The PPP government believes that by keeping Guyanese in fear and keeping Guyanese anxious, and by this war of attrition that they have launched, that they will somehow be able to maintain political power. But I will say, just like how Jagdeo picked himself up and was conveniently in Dubai or something leading up to the referendum, it is just that way they will all pick themselves up and run away when the time comes. Because you are seeing an adversary on your border that is very, very methodical in what they do. Look at how they looped us into Argyle. They duped us into an arrangement that does nothing for us, save and except to guarantee us that they will not use force. But they are amassing troops on the border. A British ship comes here to visit, and they have lodged a protest of no mean order on the international stage. Oh, it's a in breach of the Argyle Declaration, etc. They are building troops up on the border, and not one peep from this government. Not one peep from this government. And so I worry that they're keeping Guyanese so distracted from these things that are happening, these major things, by keeping us bogged down with just having to eke out a daily living, that we are not appreciative of the danger that we may be in. Meanwhile, they know. And what they're doing is preparing themselves for the exodus. This is why Ramson could have made this stupid statement that Guyanese are sending money out to the US. Well, he might be betraying a fact that there are some people who are shipping out money. It just isn't the hardworking Guyanese men and women, the poor and working class. So my point is that there is a bigger adversary here that threatens not only me from the PNC, you from the WPA. I ain't sure where Dr. Jeffrey is, but
He's
but
independent.
Independent. But you get
Independent.
the point that I am making. And so we have to begin to alert our people that it is either we live together as brothers or literally perish.
Jeffrey,
let me just say something.
I know you're itching to come in.
All right. Amanza, first of all, you can't want inclusive governance and set up a system that gives exclusive governance. You can't change people. When you give them, the operation you give them is not to change. How long you'll take, well, not necessarily Barrett and thing, but other politicians in this country to change. When? In your lifetime? It's not going to happen. You cannot say we need to change. All right, we need to change, but Karl Marx said we change in praxis. If you give me a system that is exclusive, you can't tell me try to be inclusive. And that's what you give them.
No, and look, I do not disagree with you, Doc. But what I am dealing with is the reality.
But that is the reality.
No. Hold. Let me finish. I am dealing with the reality that this is a process. Listen, you are right. You are right in what you say in terms of the construct of the thing.
Yes.
But the re-engineering of the thing is a process that will not happen tomorrow. And so What I am concerned about is, what do we give Guyanese in the meantime
A
that
proper
we are waiting
constitution.
on this? Yeah, but that, come on, Dr. Jeffrey. Of course, that will take time.
No, 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 no. A proper constitution wouldn't take time. Tomorrow morning, we can come on and say, for instance, tomorrow morning, we can say in the constitution, if they walk up the stairs, we can say the Judiciary Commission will have 3 people, qualified people, and present it to the leader of the opposition and whosoever. And if they can't agree in 2 months, push all the names in a bag and pull out one. And that man should be the chancellor. Push, and the other one shall be the chief justice, man or woman. This thing don't take long.
I
And
can
you
look,
know,
in an
and
ideal world, in an ideal world,
there's nothing to do with
that is the,
ideal
no, no,
world.
no, no, no. In an ideal world, that is the way it may work. But the
No,
reality is that this is going to take time.
no,
It
it
is
doesn't
going to
take
have to
time.
pass through the parliament. It will have to be
You
drafted.
have
And I,
constitutional reform next week or whenever you're doing it. Put it inside. Put it there. Here,
Dr.
first of all,
Dr. Jeffrey, I
first of
do
all,
not
that was a
disagree.
mistake. I agree that the people who wrote that made a mistake. It's a mistake they made. It's a mistake. But it's easy to change. Once you get over, you know why it's not going to change? Because it suits politicians and you're hustling to change them. And that will take 100 years. So what are we going to do now? We can't just say, oh, let's change. And I said, stop there. Oh, yes, stop this polarized politics immediately. And that needs a constitution. It needs a constitution. We got too many stupidness in the constitution. And it
I
needs to
agree it needs a
change.
constitution, but it also needs leaders who understand
No, no,
that
no, no,
this is something, no, I'm being very serious here. This
no.
is something that is bigger than any one party, any one political party. It also requires a certain caliber and type of leadership in Guyana to emerge. And I
No,
want to,
it needs you and I to change the constitution to make it impossible for the wicked people like Jeffrey to do what we are doing.
like Jeffrey.
It's you got these rules. The
No,
PPP
absolutely.
ain't breaking no rules, not a lot. The PPP are not doing these things, and when they do them, they can get away with it. You can't change Jack the or me or you in any time soon. So effectively, you have rules. And you have to, first of all, remember you got separation of power. You gotta make
Right,
the separation real.
right,
And
right,
if you make that real, that court system should be your last stop. And if you
right,
don't, if that is not your last stop, you better
right.
keep your powder dry. Get on the streets.
Yeah, but you
Fight.
see,
That is your issue.
the point, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I am saying that I am convinced that the answer lies in the people of Guyana. First, understanding what is at stake, and two, understanding the power of their voice and of their vote. Because, look, gentlemen, we will sit here all night and we will come up with some of the grandest of ideas. But unless the people, my Guyanese brothers and sisters, your Guyanese brothers and sisters, are able to see and understand this bigger picture that I talk about. Look, I'll tell you something. In the days leading up to the Venezuelan referendum, I was traveling the length and breadth of this country. And I believe that I saw for the first time in the eyes of Guyanese, irrespective of their political persuasion, a fear and a realization that, you know what? This is bigger than us and this can crush us as Guyanese. there's a reason why, Doc, you alluded to this fact that we're not hearing not a blade of grass anymore. Because the PPP government is deathly afraid of Guyanese coming to the understanding that we are in this thing together. This thing for me is a spiritual, almost it's something, it's at the level of the soul and of the understanding of Guyanese. We literally have to first decide that we are entitled to better, that better is our portion, that we don't have to take whatever Jagdio and Ali decided they're giving us, right? And once we decide that, we can come to the understanding that we have to reject any leader from whichever side of the political divide that tries to sell us short in that regard. And then
But
we
the woman,
understand.
come on,
No, no,
you
no, no,
people
no,
are
no.
racial. You have a racial situation, and Jack Dio said, "What's his name saying? People gonna vote for the race. They are not going to just reject them because they don't want you. They don't want me. They don't want, or you people don't want them. You're not going to do it. Venezuela isn't doing anything that they shouldn't do. It doesn't listen. Venezuela did all this to keep Maduro thing going because he got a political problem down there. If he don't amass some troops and do things, the people will say, hey, like he stopped doing things. He got put troops on there and they're messing around. What did the Americans say who studied this? Hey, the Americans said, we are satisfied there will be no invasion of man. Yes, yes, sir. What I am telling you, Maduro can't avoid putting troops at the border and doing something. Or else people are saying, like, he's a cop, he got away for truth. That's what people be saying. So he got to keep going. But you mustn't, yes, you must always be an allure. But you mustn't get carried away with this as if they're coming to
No,
us.
no, 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 no. It's not a question of being carried away, Doc. I do not agree. It is a question of understanding that the current situation provides for Guyanese on the whole the starkest reminder that we have to decide what we are doing here. It is providing us that. I think we are agreeing on some fundamental
No,
things.
we agree
And
on
yes,
everything.
we got to change the constitution. We are
We,
agreeing that it is a
I think
process.
we agree on almost everything. It's not that all these changes mustn't take place, but you change people in the context of action, not by gaffing. You
Absolutely.
can't put them in a contradictory situation and want them changed. I think even everybody, we agree on all of that. But what I am, and I agree on what you are saying. It's nice if we had good people, and perhaps we should have good people. That's
I,
great.
I think that
I
we have
wish I
good
was good
people.
myself.
I think, no, Doc, I think that when you go on the ground and you interact with Guyanese,
Yeah,
cousin Sita up the road
yeah.
literally wants the same thing that Auntie Janice
Mm.
around second corner wants.
But she want Jack, you give it to her, and you and the thing want Norton to give it to her. That is the issue. You think
And
you?
so,
I don't
how do
travel
we get
anymore.
our people to the realization that you are entitled to this? And it is not the question of whose hand it comes by is not as important as you're realizing that you are entitled to this. It means that if I vote you in here and you can't deliver for me, you're out next time.
Are you telling black people in this country that to voting by Jack, yeah, want you and show you that you won't get some stuff? You think they don't believe?
Listen
After
to me.
all 60 years that
It
we've been
could
in it,
be,
you believe
it could
Indians gonna
be.
believe.
Listen, we have to draw, gentlemen. I
You not
cannot
have
give in. No, no,
7,000
no, no, no.
All
Indians
right,
to
all
vote.
right.
You are no.
This
Listen,
is
there is the reality of it, but I
Yeah.
guess hope springs eternal in the breast of
Oh
you.
no,
yes,
man, you
yes.
I
can't run like
believe
that, Amanza.
that
Come
we
on.
got to do it. We
Well, it's
have
We,
good.
to.
It's
Yeah,
good to
there
hear
must always be hope, but there must
it's
be
good to hear
there
two
must be
approaches
hopeful hope. In the sense that
I
you
am
believe
hopeful.
any Indian, you
Listen,
knock off
listen,
7,000 Indian people.
listen
You
to me.
believe you and get them easy to believe when
Listen,
you get in power,
I'll tell you what I
things can
believe.
run their way.
I'll tell you what I believe. I believe that we are entering a time that is going to surprise many of us,
Oh, okay.
many people.
Oh
I
yes, I
believe
love
that the people of
surprises.
Guyana are going to come to an awakening and a realization,
Yeah.
and they will act accordingly.
But
Yeah.
There's a
Amanda,
Yeah.
difference. It's a different
Amanda, I
time.
love that.
Two
Different
I
different
love that. That's
two,
so nice. And I would love to, but I ain't
Dr.
putting
Jeffrey
my
sounds
neck
very
on nothing
jaded.
for that.
two
It's 60
different approaches
years
to
and they're not
constitutional
to know
reform. I will
realization.
remind us, politics 101.
Okay.
Man, human beings are inherently good, but we also learn from what the philosopher name. He said, mankind in his natural state, his life shall be what? Short,
Nasty,
nasty, and
brutish, and short.
nice, short, nasty, and brutish. So both are correct. Human beings are inherently good, but human beings in their natural state, their life shall be short, nasty, and brutish. Seemingly the opposite, but I just want to throw that in the mix. For me, constitutional reform has to, after 60 years of playing around with independence, we have to have a constitution that leads to a political solution.
That's right.
That's my take on this, right? It
Yeah.
has to lead. I have seen two big constitutional reforms, and Guyanese have gotten politically worse than better. Uh-huh. And when I look at the teacher strike, I see hope there, in terms of people taking a position on a bread and butter issue. But I also know that if an election is called tomorrow, I'm going to see something the opposite of what I'm seeing there. And we have to be realistic about it. The two tendencies are present in our culture, in our political psyche. And if we're going to constitutional reform, the constitutional reform has to find a way to reconcile the two.
Well,
And
that's
that is the
right.
political solution I'm talking about.
No, absolutely.
It's been lovely.
Absolutely. No, you see, absolutely, Doc. And I want to
Yeah,
make this point in passing. You also there has to be a blending of what we want to do ideally and what the reality is. And so I think it is for us as leaders to begin to find where that middle ground absolutely is, because you cannot discount the human spirit in all of this. A
Okay.
lot of people like to be pragmatic to the point that they discount the humanity of people, and it must never be discounted. And so the solution has to be
yeah.
a
No, no,
mixture
no.
of
And
that.
that's
And
why we
so
need the
And
green
Amanza, I
I think
hear
paper.
that's
you,
what we're
That's
except
saying.
why
that you,
Amanza, when you go back, get them to write a green paper and let me see where they're going. You, David, well, after that, I mean, it's only the WPA, and therefore bring a green paper and let me see how they understand Guyana and where they're going.
And I
That
believe
is,
that that will be a tremendous starting
oh
point.
yes, it's gonna
You
be a
see,
hell of a starting point.
you can't discount experience in this thing, but you
Yes,
also cannot discount the voice of now, because
yes,
you could bring irrelevant solutions to
yes, all
a
right.
present day problem.
yeah.
So
Agreed.
for me, I want to see both the youth and the experience at the table, so that we are informed by the lessons of the past, but
Of
we are
course.
able to address the challenges of now. Guyana has a population that is 65% below the age of 40, thereabouts. So you're talking to a young generation,
What
but it
orphan
also
young? Or
it
you
has
mustn't
to
tell
be
me this.
informed.
Orphan young, you know. Jack Joe was young, you know. Jagan was young, you know. Burnham and they screw up this whole country when they were young.
I
Let me
will
get
say,
let me you know.
yeah, but Dr. Jeffrey, in fairness, you were once there too. And so if we're going to you know, about
Yes,
who
that's
screwed up
concrete.
what.
Concrete.
So,
Talk to whosoever. But what
so
I'm
then,
saying to you, it's not young people. Who does vote for these parties anyway, with all the racism? Not young people.
no, look, and this is why
I mean,
programs and
let's
fora,
get
no, but this is
real.
why programs and fora like these are important. Because you see, unless we have this conversation and these types of conversations, you
Of
will
course.
always find that there's a disconnect between the people who count themselves as experienced and a part of all of the muck that we find ourselves in today, because we have not been willing to have these conversations. So for me, I don't shy away from the hard conversations because I believe that this is what is going to
Right.
make this country
Of
better.
course.
And Dr. Jeffrey, the fact that you would sit there and say, "You, yes, I was a part of that screwing up," is
Of
so
course.
cathartic for so many reasons. And I think it is the beginning of a conversation that we could have, because I
And a
believe
conversation that we
it has
could
to
have.
continue. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
easy.
It's a melting pot
It's
of
of course
everything.
much easier for us
Yeah.
to have that conversation between among Amanza, Henry Jeffrey, David Hines. If we were to bring Irfan Ali and Jack Deere here, it's not easy to have that conversation. Um, but it was quite instructive tonight that we had um, what Amanza calls a conversation. Amanza, what you have done tonight is that you have booked yourself um, into a permanent slot that is now going to be Jeffrey Desir slot every other Tuesday. So I'm putting you on notice. All right.
I,
Um,
I am I am so notified.
thank you very much. Thank you
Thank you
so
for
much for
having
coming
me.
on. And the school, despite the strike, um, the school was full tonight. The people come to night school, not day school. It was so lovely having you here, Amanza. I think we lost Jeffrey there for a minute, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Amanza Walton-Desir. Good. And going toe to toe with Jeffrey, and it's good to see that two different approaches. They agree on constitutional reform, but two different approaches. Of course, we are going to see this in print because we do now have the Politics 101 bulletin, which is the newsletter version of our program, and we are going to cover that and cover others. Tomorrow night, Nigel Hughes is going to be here. Another big night. And we're going to, of course, be talking about constitutional reform, among other things. So, see you all tomorrow night.